Fall is all about cozy comforts, and with Hero Bread, you can enjoy all your favorites and still hit your health goals. From breakfast bagels and meal prepped enchiladas to mouth-watering burgers and cheesy noodles. You won't believe Hero Bread's options have 0 to 5 grams net carbs and are high fiber from the taste and texture. And right now, Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's FALL25 at HERO.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains 2 to 18 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.
If you've struggled with stress, balance, or burnout, and simply feel discouraged or even defeated, and if you're ready to move from force to flow and enjoy ultimate Zen success in your career, health, or relationships, then the Zen Success Show is for you. Your host, Carissa Sims, is an entrepreneur, corporate consultant, best-selling author, meditation teacher, and healer who has found her own Zen success. Here's your host, Carissa Sims.
Welcome to this week's episode of Zen Success. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. David Bernstein. Dr. Bernstein is a highly respected physician who is board certified in both internal medicine and geriatrics. And just a personal note, I have an interest in geriatrics. I'm an occupational therapist, and I was interested in that field as well. I've worked with nursing homes. And anyway, just a little side note, his 40 years of experience have provided him with opportunities to observe, empathize, and guide thousands of adults and generations of families as they mature. His compassion and ability to see the souls of his patients, now that is speaking my language, they have compelled him to share his stories in his book. I've got some good news and some bad news. You're old. Tales of a Geriatrician, What to Expect in Your 60s, 70s, 80s, and Beyond. Now, I'm not done with his bio yet, but I just feel like aging is kind of taking on a new definition today. Like what we thought of old in the past, like 60s. I mean, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I just feel like 60 is a new 50 and vice versa. Like 40 is a new 30. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I agree. Yeah. The older you get, the more you think you're in the younger group. And you're taking care of yourself and you say, well, yeah, I've always thought of myself at the same age I started practice. So I'm sitting there with a patient I've taken care of for 30 years and I go, yeah, I remember you. You're like the same guy from 30 years ago, but we've all aged 30 years.
Right. Yeah, it's just interesting. I have a different, I really like your philosophy about aging. And I just feel like sometimes aging is a choice. We don't have to buy in to what society says we need to do, or what the paradigm is maybe like you retire and maybe you don't work or you sit on the couch, and maybe you can be even more creative and connect even more with people as you get older. What do you think?
Oh, sure. I mean, what a great opportunity it was. I'll probably talk about it more, but I had a front row seat to patients who were aging for a 40-year period of time. Mm-hmm. And they all started older than me. So I watched people go from 70 to 90 and I celebrated people's 100th birthdays who were with me. I'd invite them for lunch. I'd give them the 11:45 appointment. I'd say, okay, on your birthday, we know your birthday because it's in the computer. You're going to come in at 11:45. And we'll call you a couple of days beforehand and find out what kind of sandwich you want. And we're going to sit and have a sandwich. It may just be me, or one time my wife came, and the other time it was my staff. We were all in the break room together. And what great fun it was to have lunch with a 100-year-old. But think about it. If they were 100 and I was 40, that was a big gap. But as I got older, they were 100 and I was 60. And it's like, well, that's not as big a gap.
Yeah.
But it was amazing experience to do that.
Yeah, that's incredible. Did you ever do research on the centenarians? I know some people have done research on centenarians, people who have turned 100, and it's fascinating.
It's one of the things that motivated me to become a geriatrician.
Oh,
Were
really?
there were a few things, and before we go any further, I just need to get one more bonus point from you, Carissa.
Only one?
Well, one more, one that you don't know about yet.
Okay.
My wife's an occupational therapist.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a synchronicity that we're both OTs. OTs are pretty cool. You can go into many different fields, people that don't know occupational therapy. You can go into geriatrics, or you can work with children. I ended up going into ergonomics. Yeah.
That's really important too. Incredibly important. So when I was growing up, I watched my mother lament about the poor care her parents, my grandparents, got when they aged. And she knew I wanted to be a doctor. And she said, when you be a doctor, you take better care of these older people, not like how grandma and grandpa were taken care of. You promised me that. And I said, okay. And it was a funny kind of thing. In my senior year, in January 1973, senior in high school, a National Geographic made its way into my hand. I don't know how, because we didn't have a subscription to that. And on the cover was a centenarian.
That is so amazing.
I devoured the article. And in this process of reinventing myself now, or my re-inspiration period, I went back and I found the cover. And so it's in presentations that I do. And I reread the article, and it was written by a man named Alexander Leaf, and he was a real forerunner in this. And he should be given all the credit for the blue zones, because he talked about them in 1973. And
that's the year I was born.
Wow. That was the year I graduated high school.
Very cool.
And so if you want to look at that cover, the year you were born, January, there's a man on the cover who's a centenarian. And that was a second thing that catapulted me into wanting to take care of older adults. And we'll have a chance maybe to talk about my book, The Power of Five.
Yeah, definitely.
My Power of Five was written in my own little vacuum, without going back, without looking at current stuff of what people have written, but my observations and what research has shown about how people can be centenarians and how we could age in the best possible way. So that's what The Power of Five was about. And then the Blue Zone book came out. I don't need to plug the Blue Zone book.
Yeah, let's not talk about others, but it's just interesting.
But that was a reflection of everything that I did. And between my two books and in your clinical experience, I discovered that people can only remember 5 instructions at a time. So that's why everything that I write about and do and teach and blog about, I only leave 5 suggestions, because it just gets too cumbersome.
Oh, that's great insight. Just for articles and information in general. That's great. Well, I didn't finish reading his bio, but I want to talk about it since your book came up. And so Dr. Bernstein's observation and extensive research prompted him to write his book, The Power of Five, the ultimate formula for longevity and remaining youthful, which explores a formula to diminish the kinds of diseases many of today's adults face. Divided into 5 categories, The Power of Five details the ways individuals can take control of their own lasting youthfulness and vigor. Amazing. So now we can talk about your book. We kind of got the inspiration. Did you feel that some of your clients were asking for something they could read to help them?
Yes, I think there's people get paralyzed by the amount of information that's available to them. And that's why I wrote my book, because I wanted to synthesize it down to 5 things people can do and make it simple. And in making it simple and relating it to 5, I chose to start them all with the letter S.
Okay.
But because, you're out in public at a cocktail party, well, I read this book and it was all about five things, and they all began with the letter S.
Yeah.
So what are they? I'll say them fast. Avoid sweets, avoid stress, get more sleep, sweat, and sex. And so all begin with the letter S. Avoid sweets. Well, that's pretty straightforward. That has to do with our eating lifestyle, really. And the worst part of Americans' eating lifestyle is too much sugar in our diet. Mm-hmm. The other thing about those 5 things is the 2 threads that go through that are, one, they're all related to inflammation. So every one of those 5 things that I mentioned either create or offset inflammation. And the other thing is, the thread that runs through that is they tackle the 3 main health concerns that I would see as a physician and are leading causes of death. So if you kind of just said, give me the 3 big things that I can prevent and that are really meaningful: heart disease, cancer, and neurodegenerative disease. And as I work with older adults, and they've not had cancer and they've taken care of their hearts and they're living into their 80s, what their biggest concern is dementia, neurodegenerative disease.
Yeah.
And there's dementia of Alzheimer's, but there's Lewy body dementia and temporal frontal dementia and chronic traumatic encephalopathy of what we see in football players. So mine was, and how do we address those things?
Yeah, that's interesting. And I have heard some research being done about sugar contributing to early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. Have you heard that? And do you feel that there's a difference between eating sugar and eating things that are a substitute, like monk fruit or other, sugar, alcohol, or fruit sugar?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Going back one step, every one of those 5 things in one study or another has been shown to have some impact on dementia.
So that's amazing.
So it's sugar, it's stress and cortisol release, it's how much exercise you get, how much sleep you get, and sex is really about socialization, spirituality, connection. And I'd like to talk about it maybe a little later, but sex is about intimacy, and the opposite of intimacy is loneliness, and that's a health hazard. It's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being obese. So there is a big reason to really address that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of that during.
I've addressed all of them. But getting back to sugar.
Yeah.
Sugar is the chemical that really does create this inflammation in our bodies. So it creates inflammation in our blood vessels. So that could be in our heart or in our brain. And sugar is not the most efficient chemical for our brain to utilize for energy. It actually would prefer
interesting. You prefer what?
Ketone bodies, like people who are in ketosis.
Keto state. Okay.
So it doesn't mean you have to be in ketosis, but there is this understanding that sugar is one of the contributors to dementia. And so what we can do to keep our sugar level under control will have a significant impact on that. And the recent research that I've incorporated is, number one, how addictive sugar is. And
my God, my kids are so addicted.
And how unscrupulous industry is in promoting sugar, and how they promote it both on TV and the grocery store. Yeah. The best cereals, the highest sugar cereals are where kids can see them, and
it's so disgusting. And then also you see it perpetuated in the schools. They'll have parties and buy donuts, and it's just everywhere.
Yes, it's everywhere. I mean, try, as I did, to reward the office where I get my medical care, which is my former office. And I've written this book, so I'm not going to bring in, a cheat.
Yeah.
And so it was like, how do I do this? I don't really care if they won't eat it, but I'm not going to bring in something unhealthy. And I did find some Greek salad and Greek food that is part of the Mediterranean diet that I promote that did
Wonderful.
not have that sugar load, but the sugar just is hazardous, and it's addicting. So if you ever want to read something, the author Robert Lustig has written about the hacking of the American mind and some other things of just how addicting sugar is, and it's an addiction just like alcohol addiction, narcotic addiction, sex addiction, exercise addiction, all release dopamine in the brain, which is a pleasure hormone.
Yeah. So it needs to be treated like that. I mean, it's so socially acceptable to be addicted to sugar. I mean, alcohol is a little bit socially acceptable too, just like cigarettes used to be. But yeah, it's fascinating about sugar. You know, people put it up on this pedestal. Ooh, I got this. And like for Valentine's Day yesterday, you know, there's all this chocolate and everything. So anyway.
It's a challenge we face in society. And it's American Heart Week or National Heart Week a month in the month of February. So I've written my blogs this month are about that, and it was really, my wife pulled me back from the ledge a little bit. I really talked about, because I really wanted to talk about accountability, that we have accountability to ourselves, that making the dietary changes that we need for our own good are really important. And there's just sort of an absence of accountability around, and we have to be accountable to ourselves or find an accountability partner to help us steer clear of that addiction and balance things out. And your other question about
alternatives,
the alternatives
of sugar.
I can't hold myself as an expert in this. I can say this: if you look at an apple or apple juice, you're much better off eating the apple. And the reason is, you know, there may be natural sugar in the apple, but you're also getting all the fiber with it, which will slow down its absorption. And when you drink apple juice, they've taken all of that out, and you're just getting a jolt of sugar.
Yeah.
So that would be the difference. About monk fruit and other alternatives. Mm-hmm. I think the chemical alternatives are very desirable.
And stevia, all that stuff. Yeah.
It's a little controversial in my mind, but I do think that there's a very large percentage of our population that have metabolic syndrome.
Okay.
And that's this condition of, they have high blood pressure and high cholesterol. They're overweight, they're pre-diabetic, and that whole, which is basically what I saw in 80% of my patients every day.
Wow, 80%.
And it was involved in insulin. And even though they were prone to diabetes and going to get diabetes, they were overproducing insulin. And so maybe you've experienced this, but when people would switch and they would go to an Atkins type diet, again, not something I'm endorsing, but they cut out all their carbohydrates. They're hungry for a day or two, and then their appetite is diminished, and they start to feel better. Number one, it has to do with ketones. And number two, they don't have that urge for more sugar. And so when people ask me about sugar substitutes, well, I'm not going to suggest the chemical ones like saccharin, sweet and low, because number one, people never lost weight with them. It didn't induce weight loss. And number two, it puts something sweet on your tongue, which would stimulate your pancreas to produce insulin. And if it produces insulin, you'll become hungry, and then you'll want to eat something. And so I think monk fruit, and my wife cooks with monk fruit, and she talks about it a lot. It gets a better rap, or is probably a better thing to try to use for a sweetener.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you don't see that a lot, I guess, because of the cost. or, people buy sugar. I mean, maybe manufacturers buy sugar in bulk, and that's why you see it everywhere. It's really hard to find a food that is processed that doesn't have sugar, corn syrup, all of those like awful things.
A very good point, because that's why processed foods are so bad for people, and they don't realize it. They have sodium and they have sugar, and they have a lot of unwanted byproducts in them to make them palatable for adults and children. Mm-hmm. So when one wants to get healthy, they're going to eat the vegetable, eat the fruit, and definitely avoid things that are processed, because they're going to have sugar and other chemicals in them. High fructose corn syrup is another one that people get, and it's a hazard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what is your opinion about just fruit in general? Because I know with the whole keto diet, they even recommend like no bananas, no high quote sugar, although it's natural fruits. And they recommend things like berries, raspberries, or blueberries that have a lower sugar content. I mean, do you have the opinion that any fruit is good, or do you think that some of those fruits can be detrimental?
Well, I think things can be on a spectrum. Milky Way over here, pretty much the bar, and maybe an apple over here. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, and then there's gradations in between. When people looked at the blue zones, and people look at how do people live longer, and I'm talking about avoid sweets, but it's also.
Can we talk about the blue zone for people who may not know?
Oh, sure. I want to let me finish my thought, and I'll go back to that. So when people talk about what leads to longer life, it's calorie restriction. So when you want to talk to your audience, it's this intermittent fasting. It's eating for a time period of time and then not eating, because the body will go into a form of deprivation, and it's that deprivation that leads to longevity.
Very interesting. Is it because the body starts to rejuvenate and regenerate itself when there's no food to process? Why is fasting and eating less so beneficial?
Well, first is scientists have observed that that's the case. So then now they're going back and looking at it, and one of the other people who wrote a book that kind of mirrors mine is David Sinclair. His is Health Span, I think is the name of his book, and he talks about that as well, and that there are different ways that the body can be deprived or stressed, such that that's one of the contributors to longevity. So I'll digress for a minute, because we talked about blue zones. And if you remember, I talked
we have to come back to that. Yeah.
I talked about Alexander Leaf and the article in the National Geographic. Well, he identified, I think, 7 or 8 places in the world where people live these long lives. And then National Geographic hired somebody in the 2000s to study different populations, and he ran around the world to maybe slightly different places where he saw people living long lives, and his observations were much like I wrote about in my book. And these people were the salt of the earth, and they ate natural foods that they produced. They were in remote parts of the world, so eating was fresh fruits and vegetables that they raised. Sometimes they didn't have enough food, so they were calorie deprived. They did things that reduced their stress levels. They meditated, things that I talk about. So they meditated. They got together regularly, and the women would have tea in the afternoons, and they would make sure they got enough sleep, because electricity and modernization weren't as big a part of their society. They weren't staying up reading their tablets at night, so that they were getting more sleep.
They were more maybe in alignment with the natural cycles of the sun. And
they got more physical activity. We would call it exercise, but they worked the field. They lived at the top of mountains, so they had to walk everywhere. They didn't have cars. And the socialization part in those societies was really very important. And that's been replicated over and over again, is that when you have a group of peers that you spend time with, especially these communities where people lived really, really long lives. And these were the elder statesmen who were well respected in their community, and everybody knew one another and they interacted. And that's something that's a little bit more difficult in our society. But those were the things observed in these more remote villages where people lived long. And I translated all of that into my 5 features in my formula.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what about sleep? Do you feel like there's some people that need less sleep, and how can it affect longevity? I mean, I'll just speak from personal experience, is that I feel like I need less sleep, or my body is just on a different cycle, and I'm just waking up at 4 a.m, no matter what time I go to sleep. So anyway, I just wanted to share. That's been my own experience as I get older. But I was just curious if you feel as a doctor that sleep varies as far as people's needs.
I've studied some of this. I'm not the world's finest, most impressive sleep expert.
Oh, that's okay.
And I did suffer from my own work and sleep-related problems when I was in practice, and would get up would be awakened many times at night, and always had a phone next to my bed, and I was always, prepared that there'd be some call. So,
yeah, because you had to be, right? You were on call.
And I'm a night owl, basically, and had to get up early for work to make my house go round and get to the office. So I deprived myself quite a bit during my career. And number one, I regret it. Number two, trying to reestablish the best sleep habits of that I recommend 7 or 8 hours of sleep.
Okay, so you recommend that across the board. Okay.
Yeah, and if what you said, you wake up at 4 a.m. and that's your chronotype, they would call that a lark, a morning person.
Yeah.
And then change your time that you go to bed so that you get your 7 or 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
So you may have to go to bed at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
8
yeah.
to 4.
Because right now I'm going to bed at 10 and getting about 6 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. You might want to push that up a little bit, but I know I function pretty well on the 6 hours, and it's extra work for me to try and get it to 7 or 8, because I know that that's more desirable and beneficial. And I'm trying to protect my brain, my heart, and my body from 3 things. And I'm willing to put forth the effort. I retired about 2 years ago, and that was at the top of my list of things I wanted to do. Sleep 7 or 8 hours a night, and it is not easy.
Yeah, I agree. It's a challenge.
And I'm lucky because I don't really have insomnia. I can fall asleep pretty well, but
me too.
I just don't like to go to bed until I'm tired. So I'm up, and if someone had a camera on me from 10 till midnight, I'd look like an ant just scurrying around my house and doing all my little projects and sitting down on my computer and reading things and writing things and working on my project. So I have some elements of guilt.
Okay. I understand because you're recommending this to your clients and patients. Well, that's the way it is sometimes, it's like what we teach, we're learning ourselves and trying to perfect. So I think it's great that you're putting all this knowledge out there. I was also curious about sleep and the time. Do you feel like there's certain times of the night where you can sleep more efficiently? For example, I have heard a Harvard researcher talk about going to sleep at least getting to bed by 10, between 10 and midnight. Now, I know you said you were scurrying around, are an important part of getting the proper hormones and getting back into balance. Have you heard of that at all?
I think I have, but if your chronotype is that you're a night owl,
then you
and
would
you go to bed at midnight and you sleep to 8 o'clock, that's 8 hours. That'd be okay.
Then
or
it's
if you're a lark and you go to bed at 8 o'clock and you wake up at 4, your body's chemistry will change a little bit. I mean, we do have our circadian rhythms, and they play a role in that as well.
That makes sense. Interesting. And what do you think about getting outside in the sunlight? Do you feel like that helps our circadian rhythms or sleep? Do you find any connection to that?
It's well established, sure.
Okay.
And it's a great antidepressant, and it's kind of like setting up your clock. Your alarm clock goes off, or you wake up and you get sunlight, and your body says, "Oh, it's daytime." And at night, the sun goes down, and you're not exposed to light, and you avoid computer screens and tablets and that sort of thing, and don't get that blue light coming in. Then your body says, "Oh, it's getting dark. Let me get the balance of melatonin and these other chemicals in the right. Adenosine is another one. Let me get them in balance so that you'll fall asleep and you'll wake up at the right time." And so getting the light is really important. And I went to medical school in Albany, New York, and that was a little bit more further north than when I grew up. And it was difficult when you didn't see the sun very much. In the winter months, and people, I don't know about their sleep per se, but they were depressed. I mean,
seasonal affective disorder, even, right? They have a syndrome for that. I grew up in Alaska, so same thing. Land of the midnight sun in summer.
That would really mess with you.
Yeah, totally. So it really messed with me. Like in the summer, it's light all the time. Winter, dark all the time. But you know what we did? I don't know if this is healthy. Well, it's probably not healthy, but we did tanning beds.
Oh, I'm a doctor. What do you think I'm going to say about that one? Tanning beds.
Yeah, we have those little tattoos you put on to see how tan you are. Anyway, okay.
Yeah. I think we know a little bit more about melanoma now, but
yeah, exactly. Than back then. Or we would go on vacation, go to Hawaii. So Alaska, we go.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about sweat now and exercise. What is your typical recommendation for also staying healthy as far as preventing injuries? So you want to sweat, but like how much per day?
The government says 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, 150 minutes a week.
Yes.
It turns out, I think the government tends to undershoot on some things, and this would be one. And then there's research that says 450 is a sweet spot per week, which is 90 minutes, 5 days a week.
90 minutes, 5 days. Okay.
And anything above that, you don't get any additional return.
Interesting.
Unless you want a bigger muscle, unless it makes
or you're training for a race or something.
Unless you really love it. But if you're doing it for the health of it, or 50 is up there, and some of it could be things like walking, but I would certainly encourage people to do things like strength training, flexibility stuff. I have my 5s in my book. So it was Pilates and yoga and Tai Chi. I've done that. Strength training is important, some compound exercises. I do work out with the trainer to get some of my muscle strength. And that's important for reducing the risk of osteoporosis.
That's great.
But also when people get older and older and they become more frail and they've lost their muscle mass, and by the way, we lose 10% of our muscle mass every decade starting at age 40.
If we don't exercise or strength training,
exercise,
right?
If you don't do some strength training. So that's 1% per year. And, that adds up 20, 30 years of losing muscle mass. And you find yourself on the floor because you tripped, and then it's hard to get up.
Yeah. It's so
And
interesting.
people find it difficult to get up off of a couch if their
Yeah.
butt's a little bit lower than their knees. It becomes difficult and embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
So, we all are in a generation where we know that there's fitness equipment available and things that we can do to meet the needs, both in terms of the cardio type stuff and the strength training stuff. And there's a socialization part of doing your sweat and exercise too. You go to a gym, or you walk with a friend, or you have an accountability partner who you'll work out with, something that, or go to Tai Chi. I mean, Tai Chi was a very social activity, or yoga classes. So you do yoga and then it's over, and then you say, hey, how's it going? How's your family? So people get that 2-for-1 in terms of those types of activities.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Where do you live?
I live in the Tampa Bay area of Florida.
Oh, Florida. Okay. Well, I live in Colorado now. And like I said, I grew up in Alaska. I went to school in California. But what I notice here is really interesting. The older population here in Colorado, now I'm making a generalization, at least in my experience, like at my gym, they are just kicking butt. And they're in better shape than me. Okay. They're 10, 20 years older. They're stronger. Yeah. Go. Seriously. I mean, they're so inspiring. It's like, I mean, I'm jumping into this workout group a little bit late, and this one woman, she's in her 60s. There's people in their 70s. And I have to be honest, they are stronger than me, and they're more coordinated. And I might be a little more flexible because I'm more of like a yoga Pilates girl. But it's just interesting, the environment, and we're all encouraging to each other. It's a small group. There's like 6 of us. But I'm just like, wow, I want to be like you when I grow up, and I want to be like them now, so I really look up to them. And not only that, but I used to do triathlons, and maybe I'll get back into it. I would see older people kicking my butt in triathlons too. So it's just really interesting, because I feel like sometimes the limitations are in our mind, but I am still impressed by it.
Well, we do put limitations in our mind. We do create prejudices, and
Yes.
Every one of these 5 things I talked about, many of my patients said, I'm not doing that. I don't exercise. I don't sweat.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to sugar, doc.
You're not going to stop me, right?
You're not taking away my red meat, doc. I said, but you can't walk because the arteries in your legs are clogged because of what you've been eating. Yeah, but I can't give up my red meat. Like, really? You're going to give up your leg, but you can't give up your red meat?
And
Really?
do you say that to them straight out?
That one I did.
Good.
I'm a little bit more gentle most of the time. If you are that ungentle, then you don't have a practice for very long. So you have to, motivate people and be a little gentle with them. But when
That's right.
Late in the day or whatever, late in the week, and someone says something like that.
Oh man, that gets you.
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm smarter than that. You can't say that to me.
Yeah.
I'm human.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so what about stress? Do you feel like Tai Chi is also a stress reduction, or do you feel like that falls more under exercise? Like, what are some ways that we can reduce our stress?
Well, I'm glad you asked the question that way, because Tai Chi, as an example, is an activity where you do it with a group of other people. Mm-hmm. And they make it such that you take a break in between, and it was time to socialize. So maybe the thing lasted a little longer, but there was that part into it. The other thing is, the best antidepressant ever invented was exercise. So whatever exercise you're doing has an antidepressant effect, and you release endorphins, so you feel better. By the way, since I love saying it, exercise also reduces the risk for cancer recurrence by 35%.
Oh
So
my God, that's an amazing statistic.
yeah, so why wouldn't someone exercise to prevent, they're taking their chemotherapy or the radiation or whatever. Why wouldn't you exercise and get that extra 35%? Don't leave that on the table.
Yeah.
So exercise is really good as a stress reducer because of the endorphins that get released. And then the other parts about stress are search your environment and see what's stressing you out. And if it's a very unsatisfactory job, consider changing jobs. Consider doing something in your external environment that may be contributing to it. Or it could be in a marriage and get counseling so that you can reduce that stress. That's one side of it. The other side is the proactive side. What can you do to reduce it? So there's all different types of meditation, even the meditation you get with when you do yoga, but there are things like Headspace where you can have an app for use with your portable mobile device, and you can learn how to do that meditation because it's really helpful. If I ever get asked to consult corporations, and I had a discussion with someone a few weeks ago, it would be to provide meditation rooms for your employees. You want them to stay, you want them to be healthy, you want to be mentally healthy and awake and alert and unstressed. Provide them an area to go within your facility where they can have 10 or 15 minutes to meditate. It's been shown to be effective in terms of building loyalty and better performance.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think some cultures have that as socially acceptable, like maybe Japan. Some Asian cultures and corporations, they have different rooms where you could take naps or, meditate or whatever it might be. But then they might be workaholics too, working long hours. So you never know, it's like, but it can always help.
Life expectancies in Japan are about 8 years longer than the United States.
Oh, yeah?
So
that's amazing. I want to go back to a statistic that you mentioned about exercise reducing cancer reoccurrence by 35%. Why is that? That is so amazing. And I've never heard that specific research. And I'm also a cancer survivor as well.
I've read in a couple different places, but I can't cite the articles.
Okay.
And there were I know this sounds really hokey, but they were the major cancers that people had. It was like lung and breast and colon, and there was a pretty long list that I added in my book. But probably things like the neurochemicals that get released and endorphins that may have a favorable effect. And I know I'm really getting into the weeds here, but there's the cancer that someone develops in their lung and their breast. And then the other thing that's really hazardous is metastases, which is sort of a different process. It's like there's one and then there's the other. And some people may be more prone to metastases. And I listened to a TED talk given by a college freshman who did a research project, and she discovered this. And so the difference between the cancer part, and you won't get metastases unless you have cancer, but then there's how things and why things metastasize. And you would feel, is there anything I can do so I don't have to go back through this? I'll sweat it out 5 days a week for 30 minutes or 90 minutes 5 days a week because that other thing was really bad. And when you come down to all of the things I talk about, you want to be able to watch your legacy, your family, your kids, your grandkids. You want to attend their life cycle events, their weddings and babies and all that sort of thing. And you want to do it with a really great health span. There's lifespan. You could be chronically ill and live to be 98, like my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Or you can live a really good full life and attend people's weddings standing up versus being in a wheelchair and then go to sleep one night and die. which is
Yeah.
the preferable way for things to happen. And people retire at 65, 70, and if they live to be into their mid 80s, that's 20 years or so, or 15, 20, 30 years. So you want to be healthy for that. That's what I talk about in terms of my power of 5, is that you want that health span to be as long as possible and as enjoyable as possible. And it doesn't come without an expense of eating right and exercising and sleeping and the socialization part, which is incredibly important because we find ourselves in a really lonely society, which got worsened during the pandemic. So but
absolutely.
it preceded the pandemic. So
It did. You're right.
It was going on out there, and I made it a point. I'll speak of all the things I do those within my book because I believe in them. But the part about loneliness and socialization, that was really hard when I was working and seeing 18 patients a day. And so, okay, I had 18 friends a day. They would come in and we'd talk and schmooze, and I did my work and I had my socialization hit. But after that, and when I retired, there was not as much of that. So I have a list of people I become friends with. I see them once a week or once a month, and I have coffee with them. And I call people I've known for a while but haven't connected with in a while, and I'll say, let's grab lunch and just have a chat. And at the end or during the lunch, I'll say, you know why I'm doing this? I said, I really like you. I don't want to make them
you know why I'm doing that.
They're my guinea pig, but I said, I really like you, but I'm doing this for me because it's really important for my health and my socialization, and thereby it's good for your health and your socialization to be able to do these things. And I encourage you to find people that you can do this with. So that's an important thing. And congratulations to you, because you get something out of doing your podcast by having the socialization with guests maybe as nice or nicer than me.
Or nicer. On a scale. Oh yeah, thank you for recognizing me. And I know you have another event coming up, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but what is Zen Success to you?
What is what?
Zen Success. The name of our show is Zen Success. So what is it to you?
Is my Zen Success is, I think you talk about reinventing yourself and who I am.
Okay.
And this is really, in my retirement, and I call it my re-inspirement.
Oh, I love it.
I get a chance to be who I am. And just by happenstance, and it could happen to anybody, I was cleaning out my drawers in my office, especially when I had when I left my office, my professional office, and I came across either my high school or my medical school essay. And I read it and I showed it to my wife and I said, this is who I was back then, and read it because this is who I am right now. I want to share what I know. And you're an occupational therapist like my wife, and we'll say we did 80 years of healthcare between the two of us. And we're not putting it on a shelf. We're going to go out and teach people to do the things that will make them healthy and enjoy their health span. So being able to simmer and percolate with that and think of ways we can do that, that's our Zen. That turns us on. And even when there may be a deadline coming and my wife and I are at each other in terms of getting that PowerPoint presentation just right, it's like, but there's a purpose to this, that if we can save one life or make a difference to one person, that's meaningful, especially to them.
That is powerful. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you, hearing about your books, The Power of 5, and you have an online course and a journal that you wrote with your wife. That sounds amazing. So I'll put your website and how to buy your books in the show notes. So thanks for being on my show today. Yeah, go ahead.
One more thing, if people go to my website, I've published a small little free book there, Notes on Living Longer. And my wife has 2 recipe books, one for the holidays and one is a salad recipe book, so people can have them and get their start.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much for offering that. So I'll put that in the show notes. Well, thanks for being on my show today.
been a pleasure. Really, really has been a pleasure. What a great conversation we had. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of Zen Success. Head on over to iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show and share with friends. Be sure to head on over to ZenSuccessShow.com to help you on your Zen success journey. And join us on the next episode. May you find your own Zen success in life.